Hi, I'm Alex, and I don't like Halloween. I've never really been a big fan of Halloween. I was an absolute scaredy pants child.
Trick or treat!
And even now, like, flat out horror movies don't really appeal to me. I do like the cozy weather. I like that things are starting to cool off. I love snuggling up with a blanket when it's cold outside or rainy and reading a good book with a cup of tea. That's more my speed. The second video I ever put out was actually a Halloween video where I talked about movies that are not that scary and therefore are the movies that I watch around Halloween time. And if you watch that, you will already know that my number one spooky season fall watch is Over the Garden Wall. If you've clicked on this video, you probably already know what Over the Garden Wall is, but in case you don't, Over the Garden Wall is a TV miniseries that came out in 2014 and premiered on Cartoon Network. It is just this 10-episode long cartoon that just is so cozy. Very good show about two brothers lost in the woods trying to find out where they are and how to get back home. I wouldn't call it underrated because a lot of people do know about it. It's kind of a cult classic amongst people who appreciate art and animation and cartoons. Now, for the previously initiated, you probably know that this year is the 10-year anniversary. So I figured it's such a big year for this show, and it's something that is very near and dear to my heart. I always watch it at least once with my sister. She's been studying abroad for the last few years, so it's something special to us that we get to sit down and video call and watch it together. Yeah, it's a big deal in my life, and so because it's the anniversary, I figured I would put out this video showing what I'm making. Special treat for people who also really love the show, and for people who haven't,
welcome to the unknown, boys. You're more lost than you realize.
Because I'm not into Halloween, I've never tried to lean into autumn. I never have had any decorations because decorations are expensive. I just never dedicated the time to making a bunch of stuff for a holiday and a season that I wasn't super into. Yeah, and even though I've never committed to it before, I figured now that I have a house... Jump scare, yes, I have a house now. In case you're wondering why I've been gone for so long and I haven't posted a video in a year and a half or something like that, point is, I have room to decorate now, which is awesome, but also very intimidating because, again, decorations cost money. And now that I have a house...
Guys, you're broke!
So we're going to try our darndest to spend as little money as possible to make as many crafts as possible. Yeah, but these are just going to be nice decorations that I hopefully can add a little bit to each year. The goal would be that at some point, all my decorations around my entire house are Over the Garden Wall themed. Because the beautiful thing about them not being just for Halloween, whenever I want to start experiencing fall, even if the weather is not cooperating, if I am in the mood for it, I can put them up in September and leave them all the way until end of November when I put up Christmas stuff. So yeah, enough yapping. I'm really excited. You want to see some crafting, and I need to go to the craft store. I had already made an Enoch a few years ago, and then I knew I for sure wanted to make a wreath for my front door. I knew the door wreath would be the perfect place to incorporate some of the smaller items from the show, at least the ones that are most recognizable. I picked just a couple items. I ended up settling on the sewing scissors and the yarn. And then I would also sculpt at least one of the tiny black turtles. And I had to get the rock fact rock in there somehow.
It's a rock fact!
I also figured I had to represent the Pottsfield pumpkin people somehow. I drew up a sketch of a bunch of little pumpkins that I could just buy from the craft store and paint them. We switched that up to just a paper garland, which I could hang above my main living room window. The other most iconic item that I knew I wanted to make is the lantern. I obviously could just have had a plain lantern to reference from the actual show, but the album cover artwork is so iconic, it would be kind of a staple piece of this whole project. And with my 3 main projects planned out, I knew exactly what I needed to get from the craft store. After what is probably a debatably healthy or unhealthy amount of procrastination, I did get the materials I needed and got to work. It wasn't part of my initial sketch, but I did find this wooden plaque that was the perfect size to fit inside the wreath that I found. I pulled out my art book, which honestly was like a lifesaver for this entire series of projects, and I referenced the typeface in there so that I could replicate the lettering on my little plaque. Especially because the lettering and especially the title cards of each episode is so important to conveying the folk art feel that the show has. So yeah, I sketched out a bit of lettering and just added some filigree and different decorative elements to the outer edges. I also included the silhouettes of Greg and Wirt and the skull motif that are all part of the opening title card. I didn't record it, but I did go in and added some color, some gradient orange to the insides, and then I had to go back and clean up more with black to make the edges really crisp. Also spent some time sculpting the air dry clay elements that I wanted to add to the wreath. It was a bit of a struggle. I'm not great at 3D sculpting. I'm happier with how the rock turned out. Did a little bit of roughing up to give him some texture. I did my best to replicate the paint job on that as well to be screen accurate, if that even matters. The turtle was a bit of a struggle. Did give him his little eyeballs. Also sculpted little ridges. I don't know, I guess they're just supposed to be there for turtle texture. I kind of went back and forth a lot, being indecisive about the paint job on that. If it was all black, it would be hard to have the details. So I didn't want to paint them all black, but I settled on just a really, really dark green. I'm no sculpting master. I think they turned out cute. I don't feel like assembling the wreath right now because I have to figure out how to affix all those elements to the wreath. I'm not ready for that yet. I feel like right now I'm still in a crafting headspace. We are going to move on to what I'm really excited about, which is the pumpkin garland. Several years ago, I already painted my big Enoch pumpkin. It's like the first Halloween decoration I feel like I ever cared about enough to display, but it definitely feels right to add the rest of the Pottsfield community. I originally thought about trying to make a bunch of little pumpkins just like Enoch and paint all those different faces. Fake pumpkins are expensive. I pivoted that to paper instead. So once I had the vision that this was going to be a paper garland and I had the materials, I needed references. So I did go back and watch episode 2. Anytime there was a new person, even if I wasn't sure, is that the same person? Is it a different person? Is it the same face with just a different hat on? I took a photo. What I have noticed, it is a lot of repeat faces and just different hats or hair. There's at least, I would guess, maybe like a dozen unique faces in there that we have to work with, which should be plenty for the length of garland that I'm doing. Hopefully, it should work out. Let's get a doodling, and I'll see you later. So unfortunately, we've had some significant delays, and the reason for these delays is really because we have a delinquent halting the construction process. I have this thing now. Her kitten shenanigans have absolutely derailed the crafting phase. My house absolutely just looks like a tornado has run through it. What do you have to say for... Oh, okay. Partly because of her fierce personality and also the fact that I adopted her on the first day of autumn. This is Beatrice.
A bird's brain isn't big enough for cognizant speech.
Hey, what was that?
I mean, I'm just saying, you're weird.
Just happens to be a nice coincidence for this video. Beatrice just seemed to fit. I might be able to get some work done now that she's actually napping, but it seems like any time that she finally crashes, this one wants to make mischief then, because, I don't know, he's an orange. I quickly realized that colored pencils was not going to be the way to go on these paper pumpkins. They just were not giving the vibrancy that I wanted with the color. So I switched over to my acrylic paint. It made it feel more like paper mache and a bit more handmade and crafty, which is exactly what I wanted. And in the end, I think it looks way better than if I would have just left them flat. I was able to add a lot of different dimension to the color. Any color that I knew would be difficult to get enough opacity out of with just paint, like the whites of the teeth or the yellow shadow of the eyes. You'll see later that I cut them out of the construction paper I had. So after these were all done, I just backed them with some cardboard that I painted black on the other side. please notice my sweatshirt. It is like one of my very favorite clothing items. Now, I needed to take a little break to say I'm running out of time to work on this project. Having a too much jean is quite a problem when you're also a lazy person. The solution to that is to basically work as quickly as possible to complete the extra things that I now decided I want to complete before I get tired of them. So yes, even though I currently only have some of the projects that I initially planned actually finished, somehow adding more to my list. So, what am I doing? What am I doing? So, I already had the Enoch. He did need a little bit of touching up paint, and he will be added to my indoor decorations. So, I also had already acquired 2 of the permanent carve and keep kind of pumpkins from the craft store. I figured, why not just add them outside? So, I've already added some paint to these. This one was just like a flat, boring orange, and I've added some dimension to it with some different reddish oranges. And then I have this little guy, which he used to be white. So it's got a new paint job. I'll admit I don't love the color. It looks kind of like baby poop. Tried to kind of make it look like it was dual colored. I don't know. It's not the most convincing paint job in the world. I understand that. I have one tall oblong pumpkin and one squat round pumpkin. Yeah, I'm not going to get incredibly detailed. I think I'm just going to keep it very simple to their faces. The other items that I got, I'll put a picture up. These little houses that light up. Now, originally when I first saw them, I thought, oh, I'm going to want to add a bunch of details to these. One of them, it looks like a church, but it could work as a schoolhouse for the 3rd episode. Different sizes of houses could work for different buildings, but I would love to do that next year. For the sake of my mental health, the right thing to do here is compromise. Okay, I'm going to add the houses. I'm just going to paint them all black, and they will be there, and they will be ready, primed in one flat color, and ready for next year. So, that's what we have to do. Okay, I've stalled enough. I didn't do any in-person check-ins for the lantern process, which is totally my bad. So you're going to get a little recap of how I made it. Once I had the lantern base that I was going to use, I measured the different panels so that I could cut out exactly the size panels of construction paper that would go on each side. And then off camera, I sketched out what I wanted on each panel. The front one, I could just take directly from the album cover, but the other three, I just had to make up what I wanted them to be. It was surprisingly hard because it had to be something that would look good in silhouette. I actually drew them all backwards so that the pencil, I wouldn't have to erase it later. I could just cut them out and then flip them over to be the non-pencil side, if that makes sense. And then, yeah, I spent a bunch of time cutting out teeny tiny pieces of paper with an X-Acto blade, which really took me back to art school because the calluses that will appear on your fingers from using X-Acto blades in excess, it is something you will not easily forget. Once I had all my panels ready, it was time to glue them to the outside of the glass panels. And then for the insides, to kind of diffuse the light, I just tacky glued down some tissue paper. And then off camera, I did cut out some extra little pieces of paper for the top openings and cut out some little stars. So I'm just working on the garland, which ended up being kind of a tedious, complicated thing. I was not really expecting it to be, but anytime math is involved, it gets complicated. I didn't really use any actual math. I just hung up my string the way I want it hung, marked out where it'll tie to the curtain rod. Yeah, I counted out all these leaves so that I have about the same amount in each section. And then, yeah, once everything, I'm just threading it through with the yarn that I have. And once I have everything strung on each section, I can just kind of, hang it up and fiddle with it to make things even in each space. He's being very helpful. He's guarding my leaves for me. I'm just gonna keep plugging away at this. And after putting it off this entire project, I finally assembled the wreath with some hot glue. I first assembled the turtle, which I needed to make a little candy piece for to glue on his back.
Candy trail, candy trail, candy trail.
I just made that out of some rolled up paper covered in some cellophane. So for the wreath itself, I kind of used some picture hanging strategy to affix the plaque. I just screwed some little hooks into the wood and then threaded some wire around the hooks and then also threaded that wire around and actually through each side of the wreath so that it was really secure. Then I tried my best to messily yet somehow strategically thread the yarn in and around the wreath. It does get kind of lost with all the other colors, but I think it's a fun little Easter egg when you see it. And then with my high temp hot glue gun, I just started gluing the remaining pieces in. Once everything was on there super secure, so it wasn't going anywhere, I was finally able to hang my wreath up on the door, and it's time for the reveal. And that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. Currently, it is Halloween evening. I just finished passing out candy to trick-or-treaters for the very first time. It was very fun. I'm incredibly happy with how everything I made turned out. If anything, there's maybe a couple additions to make. Mostly Enoch needs a top added to him at some point so that he doesn't just have a gaping hole in his head. But other than that, and painting those houses, I feel in a really good place to just add more next year, which is, I don't know, a really good place to be. So again, thank you so much for watching. I know it was a long wait, but I hope it was worth it. If you'd like to stick around for the next one I make, whenever that might be, definitely subscribe. Cannot promise to post regularly, but I am persistent, if nothing else. I do like to just pop up now and then. And that's that. Happy 10th anniversary to Over the Garden Wall. A very happy autumn to all of you. And I'll see you next time. Bye.